lesson for January the 28th is entitled Justice Delayed. The key verse is Matthew 13, verse 30, which says, "Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned, then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn." The scripture is from Matthew 13, verse 24 through 30, and verses 36 through 43. The lesson focus: Jesus will return to judge the wicked and reward the righteous. In the overview, it says that it may seem counterintuitive, but God has not called us to right all the wrongs in this world. We are to do justice, practice mercy, and communicate God's truth to a fallen world, to be sure. But we are not to fool ourselves or misrepresent our calling to the world by presuming to judge and condemn as only God can justly do. In the following lesson, we will look at Jesus' plan for destroying the evil that poisons our world, and what that plan means for us as we seek to live righteous lives. In the introduction, it says that imagine that you once lived in an apartment that had a bug problem. The problem was that it had bugs. You tried a variety of solutions to get rid of the bugs. You set traps, sprayed poison, paid others to get rid of the bugs. But even when you were at your most vigilant, the bugs never disappeared. Occasionally, they retreated for a time, but they always came back. After a year, you moved from that apartment and learned that the new tenants were suffering from the same bug problem. But one day, they informed you the bugs left and didn't return. As it turned out, the neighbors to your old apartment had unusual hygiene habits and a high tolerance for bugs. But when they moved and their apartment was cleaned, the bugs left the whole complex. In some ways, the world is like that apartment. It is filled with bugs, sin, and evil. But one day, Jesus will rid the world of this evil infestation. The hard part is not to take action on our own against the evil. Unlike your hypothetical response to the bug problem, Jesus instructs us not to fight to get rid of the infestation. Instead, he calls us to wait for him and his plan. In part 1, it says that we must keep our focus on the harvest, and the text is from Matthew 13, verses 24 through 30, which says, Jesus told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. The owner's servants came to him and said, "Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from?" "An enemy did this," he replied. The servants asked him, "Do you want us to go and pull them up?" "No," he answered, "because while you are pulling up the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned, then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn." Like many of the other parables of Jesus, this one shows the nature and character of the kingdom of heaven by comparing it to something earthly. In this parable, the kingdom is not compared to a mustard seed that grows to be the largest garden plant, as in Matthew 13, verses 31 and 32, or to valuable treasures that transform the priorities of those who find them, as in Matthew 13, verses 44 through 46. Rather, it compares the kingdom of heaven to the difficult experiences of one sower who worked to grow wheat. In this parable, the common experience of growing wheat takes a bad turn when the sower's enemy sabotages his field by sowing weed seed among the wheat seed, while everyone was resting from a season of hard work. The sower's servants' lives are vested in the sower's success. When they notice that weeds are growing in the field, the soil of which they labored to prepare, they question their master. At first, their questions implicate the sower in the problem. Then they express their complete confusion over the field that is unexpectedly sprouting both wheat and weeds. The sower answers both questions clearly with one sentence. An enemy did this. He reaffirms his own credibility as a competent sower, and he points to the origin of the bad seeds. An enemy implies a battle, and the servants reply nobly by asking if they should stage a counterattack and fight to win back the field. But the sower says no, because there is more at stake than the field. There is the wheat. While weeding the field would negate the enemy's attack and save the field, much of the wheat would be lost, and the enemy would have won on a more important front, the harvest. In any attempt to redeem the field, some of the wheat would be lost, and in the growing season it is the wheat that is valuable. It would have been easy for the sower to lose his focus on the wheat and the harvest, and to turn his attention toward his field and his enemy. But the sower remained focused to ensure that as much wheat as possible got into the barn. The field can be restored later. Now is the time for the wheat. The sower's response not only shows wisdom and compassion concerning the servant's need for a bountiful harvest, but it also shows confidence in the wheat's ability to withstand the presence of the weeds. As we will see in the third section, the parable shows that Jesus is confident that those who are his can endure the attacks of his enemy, Satan. In part 2, it says that the disciples sought an explanation, and the text is from Matthew 13, verse 36, which says, "Then he left the crowd and went into the house. His disciples came to him and said, 'Explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field.'" The crowds did not exercise faith in Jesus and his message about the kingdom of heaven. Because of this lack of faith, understanding of Jesus' teaching is kept from the hard-hearted crowds. Initially, Jesus veiled his teaching from the crowds by presenting it in parables. Now Jesus removed his teaching from the crowds altogether by going into the house where he would explain the parable only to his disciples. The parable of the weeds in the field was spoken to the crowds, but the interpretation is given solely to the disciples who seek it. In part 3, it says that Jesus will, and only he can, end sin and evil. And the text is from Matthew 13, verses 37 through 43, which says, "He answered, 'The one who sowed the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed stands for the people of the kingdom. The weeds are the people of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. As the weeds are pulled up and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. They will throw them into the blazing furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears, let them hear." Jesus began explaining the parable by defining the key elements of the parable. First, he said that the one who sowed the seed is the Son of Man, which is a common term for Jesus in the book of Matthew. Second, Jesus said the field was the world. The field is not the geography of a single country or a nationality of people, but it represents all nations and all people. Jesus explained that the good seed represents the children of the kingdom, and in contrast, the bad seed stands for the children of the evil one. Next, Jesus said that the one who sowed the bad seed is the devil. The theme of this parable agrees with the previous one, which taught that setbacks are the work of Satan. Finally, Jesus explained that the harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. In the parable, once the servants learned that the field had been compromised by an enemy's attack, the sower told them not to weed out the weeds from wheat. We can begin to see two reasons why Jesus' disciples are not to weed out the evil that compromises the kingdom of heaven today. First, we are not to launch an attack on the evil in our world because the time is not right. If we attempt to destroy all that is evil now, much that is good would also be destroyed. Second, we are not to attack the evil in our world because it is not our job. It is the job of angels. They will do the harvesting. They will gather both the righteous and the wicked, and they will separate the two. We must learn to resist the urge to lash back at the enemy. We must keep focused on the value of what is good and not compromise that in an attempt to destroy what is bad. One thing that can give us the strength to wait is the knowledge that when the time is right, Jesus will send his angels to weed out his kingdom of everything that causes sin and all who do evil. Then we will shine like the sun. Presently, we must learn the grace of coexisting with evil, but a day is coming when evil will be destroyed, and we will experience the kingdom of heaven in the unfettered presence of our Father. In today's life application, it says to ask a few seasoned Christians about the experience they had when they gave God permission to weed out of their own hearts all that was evil, sinful, and wrong. Try to comprehend how awesomely great that experience was. Then try to imagine together what it will be like when those same types of things are removed from the face of the earth and every heart pulses to the holiness of God. What a glorious day that will be.